Hi, my name is Rick Holland, and I'm a senior analyst with Forrester Research, and today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about hybrid web security. We're going to talk about the evolution of web security. We're going to introduce the SaaS model and the hybrid model for web security. We're going to talk about the different deployment options that are available. We're going to take a deeper dive into the hybrid model, and then we're going to give you some recommendations on how to approach the next evolution of web security. So let's start off with talking about the traditional approaches to security. And you're aware of this. Traditionally, firewalls have been the bastion for our security. Within the web content perspective, we've been allowing HTTP and HTTPS traffic. We've had limited visibility into applications. Behind the firewalls, you see endpoint antivirus solutions, signature-based detection, and then you also had host-based intrusion prevention, which is extremely complex. Organizations purchase it oftentimes but are unable to successfully implement it because it is so complex to be able to implement without significantly impacting your users. And then traditional web security. Traditional web security has been static and centralized. There's been a big focus on URL filtering, and a lot of organizations, this came from an HR, perhaps legal perspective, a liability issue. And then antivirus signatures through web security, and we know that that's not effective. Traditionally, we were protecting desktops and laptops, and oftentimes we were either backhauling web traffic to a headquarters location, or we had individual implementations at remote sites. And our traditional model kind of looked like this. We had our field office at the top left that had a proxy sitting at it. We had a field office in the bottom left that was actually backhauling traffic towards the headquarters. And all of our remote users who are using laptops are getting backhauled to the corporate office. And then everything goes through the corporate office or the field office with a proxy to the internet and back. Well, now let's talk about today. The environment has changed a lot today. Today, we have to deal with mobility. It's probably one of the top issues for all organizations. Obviously, we have to talk about the cloud and all the different options that are available in the cloud. And then, of course, we have the advanced threats. And so how does content security evolve to deal with this challenging environment? So let's talk about the next evolution, because the next evolution is what's going to be necessary to deal with this challenge. We have to deal with Web 2.0. We have to deal with social media. We have to be able to provide real-time and proactive threat detection. We all know that signature-based antivirus is not an effective solution. We have to deal with mobile devices. Mobile devices are proliferating everywhere within our organizations. And we have to deal with the extended enterprise. And the extended enterprise is this. It's an organization that's no longer contained behind a secure perimeter. The infrastructure is no longer within the confines of the company. We can't control the perimeter. We can't control the users that are connecting to our environments. We're connecting out to cloud-based services. It's a really challenging environment for us to protect. And mobile devices are key to this. And we're going to see continued growth in mobile devices through 2015 and beyond, as we see tablets, smartphones replacing regular computing devices such as laptops. I have a statistic here from Forrester as well, where we polled our Security and Risk Council, which is our premier leadership group within the security and risk practice at Forrester, and asked them what the top 5 challenges were for Q2. Or for the first half of 2011, and securing mobile devices, 60% of those leaders, that was their top concern. So how are we going to deal with this? Well, we need a game changer. And what that game changer is going to be SaaS and the hybrid deployment. So let's talk a little bit deeper about the SaaS model and what this looks like. In the SaaS model, there is no appliances, there is no backhauling. Basically, everything goes to a SaaS cloud and is sent to the internet from there. So the field offices that had proxy appliances or software running at them now goes directly to the cloud. Headquarters still is going directly to the cloud. And now you'll notice our remote users, which now include mobile devices as well as laptops, are going to a cloud for SaaS as opposed to directly to the internet. And then let's talk about the hybrid model. And the hybrid model has the mixture, obviously, of both the traditional approach as well as a cloud-based approach. In the hybrid model, your headquarters has a device, your field offices can connect directly to the cloud, or a field office, if it's a significant size or there's a particular use case, which we'll talk about a little bit more detail, could also have an appliance at it. And your remote users in the hybrid model are obviously going to connect directly to the cloud. And the cloud adoption is up significantly. It's up 18% for web filtering since 2010. Currently, we're seeing web filtering adoption around 39%. And we expect to see web filtering adoption trends to follow the email security adoption. Many organizations are already using email security services in the cloud and are comfortable with that, and we expect to see the same thing from a web perspective. And why are people moving to the cloud for web content security? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and one of the first and foremost is the deployment speed. You're able to quickly deploy devices, deploy users without having to provision equipment. So this is huge. If an organization has an acquisition, brings on 10,000 new users, you don't have to wait to get hardware ordered, deployed, and configured for those devices. So you can quickly get the solution out to your end users and provide them protection. Financial alignment is huge. We all know that the finances drives the bottom line in what we do in information security, and the no upfront CapEx expenditures is an attractive option for a lot of the C-suite folks. Another benefit that you see here is you pay for what you use. So when we talk to customers that are perhaps in the retail space right now that are ramping up for Cyber Monday, and they have more people that are going to be using internet, then they can quickly scale up to protect them without having to provision new equipment. Another benefit, of course, is outsourcing. You no longer have to maintain the staff to run these devices and the skill sets to run these devices. And for some organizations, that's a challenge. Total cost is a benefit as well. Operational overhead, reduced upfront one-time cost, as we kind of talked about with the CapEx expenditures, and then reduced resource waste. You have a finite members of your team to manage these devices, and if you no longer have to maintain devices, then you can use those resources for other purposes. And of course, what we feel is going to be the big driver for the SaaS content security model is going to be the extended enterprise. The need to be able to protect any user from any device from any location. So now, let's dig a little bit deeper into the deployment models and talk about what we need to consider, and then ultimately which deployment model will be right for you. So when we're looking at this, there's several questions that you're going to want to ask yourself. And the first is how distributed is your workforce? How many remote sites do you have? How many locations, field offices do you have? And of course, the number of remote workers. Now, this number is increasing as time goes on. More and more people are telecommuting. More and more people are becoming remote workers as they're accessing your network resources from tablet devices. Do you backhaul traffic? How much time and resources are required to manage your existing solution? How flexible and scalable does your IT organization need to be to support your business initiatives? And this kind of alludes to what we spoke about, maybe merger and acquisition activity, seasonal activity, being able to quickly adjust to business requirements. And of course, in everything that we do, what are your compliance requirements? Some organizations have very, very strict compliance and others do not. In the web filtering space, compliance may not be as critical as it might be in other areas of putting things into the cloud because of the type of information that is being sent to the cloud. Source, destination, transactional type data. You're not sending data up into the cloud necessarily. Another question is what policy requirements do you have for your mobile users? And we see a lot of organizations that are still building out their policy requirements in general. But you'll have some flexibility. Do you want your users to have the same policy no matter where they're located? Do you want them on a personally owned device when they're off your corporate network to have a different policy that is less stringent than perhaps it might be when they're doing personal browsing? You have a lot of options to consider there. So now what we'll do is we'll kind of take a line-by-line look at each of the models and kind of talk about some of the pros and cons of each one. First up is the cost. And traditional, of course, if you're starting from scratch, you're going to have to provision all this equipment. You're going to have to, perhaps in a large deployment, you bring in some expertise to help deploy it. is going to be a lot of upfront cost. SaaS model, of course, you're not going to have that because everything is going into the cloud. And in a hybrid model, there's going to be a mix between the two. Next up is annual cost, and this is somewhat generic, but typically we see them to be about the same. It will depend in your organization what your needs are, but the annual cost, once you have a traditional solution, it will probably be comparable to what it would be for a SaaS model. The total cost of ownership over 3 years is going to be high in a traditional model. The SaaS model, of course, is going to be low to medium. And a hybrid model is going to be high as well, and perhaps it could be medium to high. Ongoing administrative overhead. So this is your day-to-day administration. Of course, in a traditional model, it's going to be high. Depending on your organization and how frequently you update software code, you might do this once a year, you might do this twice a year. There's going to be overhead associated with that. There's also going to be overhead in day-to-day administration. In the SaaS model, obviously, you don't have that. In a hybrid model, it's going to be lower than a traditional model because you don't have as many appliances that you have to support. Mobile and remote worker support. Obviously, in a traditional model, I put this as weak. If you're backhauling users and there's latency for their backhauling, that's not the best user experience. And there's a lot of opportunities within IT to get a black eye and cause yourself problems. And content filtering, URL filtering, browsing speeds are two areas that we always have to be careful because you can quickly get a lot of help desk calls that go up the chain of command. Obviously, the SaaS model and the hybrid model, it's great support for your mobile and remote workers. That's what it's built for. Content delivery. Content delivery is not dead. Many organizations that I talk to when I do inquiries with Forrester clients are still today doing caching and stream splitting on their premises. Stream splitting is interesting because it comes up in scenarios where perhaps the CFO of your company is going to be on MSNBC and everyone at your corporate office is going to stream that at the same time and effectively do a denial of service on your bandwidth. So stream splitting is a really common use case that we see, and the traditional model obviously is able to handle that. The SaaS model isn't capable of handling that type of content delivery, and the hybrid model is. Scalability and agility, and this is really huge. We see Forrester clients, IT departments, to be able to add value to their organizations need to be scalable and need to be agile where they can. The traditional model, I score it as weak because if you need to scale up, add new devices, add new users, it's going to be a slower process. In the SaaS model and the hybrid model, if you are building new offices out. Perhaps you decide you want to go to the cloud for these particular office types. Well, it's very easy to do that. You could probably have that done within days of turning up your internet pipes at that location. So when does the hybrid model make sense? In the inquiries that I do with Forrester clients, there's several different use cases that I hear about and that I write about, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit more detail. The first up is the hybrid model for flexibility. The hybrid model for flexibility, you get the benefits of both scenarios. You're able to leverage the capabilities that don't exist in the SaaS model. So the content caching and the stream splitting examples that we just used. And those are really big use cases for clients today. You get failover for your on-premise appliance. So let's say a device goes down, there's an update of code, you have a problem, or you have a hardware issue. Well, you could call your provider and probably quickly provision a backup well in advance of when you could have a new piece of hardware running on your site. So it gives you a nice sense of security that you do have backup that can quickly scale. That's what the cloud's all about. Security capabilities you'd rather keep on premises. There are some functionality that people want to keep on premises, DLP is being one of them. Now, DLP oftentimes is one of the most challenging implementations that we see in client environments, but one area where DLP can be effective particularly is in the email or in the web channel. And so we do see a lot of clients that do outbound DLP controls, perhaps for uploads to Google Mail or something along those lines. So that's something you want to keep on site. Well, you can have your DLP functionality exist in your hybrid model, and then once the traffic is passed through that sensor, you can go up to the cloud for its web filtering. This is a really attractive option for certain verticals. There are some verticals that are just hesitant to go to the cloud, and perhaps will go only when they have no choice whatsoever. Financial services, healthcare industries are verticals where the hybrid model for flexibility can be attractive. Highly regulated, they may need to use DLP on premises for that particular use case. So those are some attractive ones, and there's others out there as well. And then you'll just see some customers that are just going to, regardless of vertical, are going to be very slow to adopt the cloud. And another benefit of the hybrid model is you can pick up your existing appliance-based policies and you can apply them to anyone wherever they're located. So the policies that your users are used to when they're on premises can easily be extended to them when they're outside of your environment. And the second use case that we see very, very frequently for our clients is a hybrid for the transition to the cloud. People know that they're going to go to the cloud. They're just not sure when. So people that aren't ready for the cloud. And I had a call just this week, large organization with maybe a year into a contract on a significant amount of appliance-based solutions. They'd like to move to the cloud. They still want to be able to use content caching in some areas, but long term, there's a lot of areas that they have remote offices where they don't need to have appliances there. So they can go and transition to the cloud, but not today. They'll go ahead and run out the 2 years that remain on their appliances and then make that transition. Switching to the cloud from a vendor perspective and delivery is easy as maybe flipping a switch, but for organizations that have existing hardware on their environments, they're not going to be able to do that change quite as easily. The hybrid model kind of equals SaaS training wheels. So for organizations that know they want to get to the cloud long term, but they're not ready to send their corporate remote offices to that environment, you can go ahead and put your mobile users, your remote workers, your telecommuters into the cloud, and you can test it out. And as the cloud environment matures and you become more comfortable with it, perhaps there's enhancement requests, certain use cases that you need that you see begin to become available, then you can kind of take those training wheels off when you're ready. Leverage capital investments, and we kind of spoke about this earlier with the not ready for the cloud example. There are people that have significant investments that they need to fully amortize off of their books, and it's going to take time to do that. So that alone for some organizations will slow their movement to the cloud. And this is also a big one for organizations. Whenever we deploy solutions into environments, there's time spent to deploy them, project management, project planning, there's staffing, there's training. So there's a lot of non-capital expenses that you've invested within your organizations with the equipment that you have. So a lot of times organizations will want to take advantage of that. We just spent 1 year deploying globally all of this gear. Well, we need to go ahead and take advantage of that as well. Now, obviously, the capital investment is going to trump that, but this goes along with it. So what should we look for when we talk to clients, when they're asking what should they look for in a hybrid model? Let's talk about what we talk to them about. So I think one of the most important things that we need in a hybrid model is a single pane of glass. A lot of the hybrid solutions that are out there have either come via acquisition or they have been organically developed from a company. And what we're seeing today is there's not as much parity between the traditional appliance-based solutions and the cloud pieces and the cloud policies. And so what we want is we want to be able to manage our users on the corporate network and our users that are working from home from one management console. We want to have unified administration and we want to have unified reporting. The vendors in the space are working towards that, and some people have reporting today and administration will be coming very shortly, but that I would put at the top of the list. We know that your organizations are resource constrained. You don't have a lot of time to work on projects. You're constantly firefighting. So having to manage two different solutions is not the way to go. And this is two different solutions on top of all the other solutions that you have to manage in your environment. And it's not just the features from administration and reporting. There's other features that you're going to want to check. to make sure that they exist between both the on-premises and the cloud. And the vendors are working towards this. This hybrid model is something relatively new. The SaaS model is new for sure. So the market is responding to the requests from clients. And when we look at these kind of requests and you ask the vendors about them, it gets on their roadmap, and the sooner you'll have these capabilities. Something else that we absolutely want to have is visibility into and control over internet applications. More and more traffic is going through port 80, 443. You want to be able to see what's going out on those ports. You want to be able to perhaps throttle them, do some bandwidth control. In your environment, you don't want to be draconian with your URL filtering, so you allow people to access Facebook. However, you don't allow them to post, so you just operate in a read-only fashion. There's a lot of options that you could have, and in more and more devices, more and more users just going to be driven towards internet-based applications. Strong anti-malware capabilities. We kind of touched on this earlier. Signature-based antivirus is not effective. I really feel that I cover content security, and when you look on the news, the headlines, it's spear phishing attacks. A lot of the headlines that have happened over the past year, they're coming through our email first and then going out through our web content security solutions. The nice thing about the cloud is it gives the vendors data. It gives the vendors big data, and they're able to do analytics and look for signs of malicious activity and provide preventive and proactive detection. So I would highly recommend, as you're looking at a hybrid solution, to take a really deep look at their anti-malware capabilities, because I think it's one of the most critical pieces of the overall solution. DLP capability. DLP is going to grow more and more. I think as people become even more mobile on these devices, and you start to see DLP into the cloud for organizations that might want to do that, that'll be a big use case. Continued growth in DLP for your on-premise solutions is absolutely critical as well. Mobile filtering. We spoke about mobile kind of all throughout this, and it's going to be big. Next year, the content security vendors are going to have mobile solutions that are ready for your iPad and iOS users. Android will also be coming, but typically we see people going with the iOS first. So you're going to want to make sure that they have a roadmap. Make sure that their roadmap aligns to the devices that are in your organization, although we see most organizations having a wide variety of mobile devices. Okay, so what's next? What do we recommend to Forrester clients and to you as you're trying to navigate these waters? Well, the first thing is we have to prepare ourselves for the extended enterprise. And you're already doing this, having to deal with the mobile users, having to deal with the social networking, less and less control of your environments. And this is where the hybrid model can come in and help you out with this. You can now protect your mobile users, remote workers, with the same policies that you've traditionally protected your on-premises users. You're going to want to put hybrid for your distributed workforce and for your mobile users. Next year, when the solutions come out, take a look at the solutions for the mobile devices. Start looking at them. Start providing protection. Just this week in the news, you see more and more reports on malware in mobile devices. It's growing and growing. We're seeing attacks in the space. It's not distributed, but why wait for it to be distributed? This isn't the 90s. We don't need to wait for Slammer. Let's get some proactive protection. So when they have these solutions come available, consider that hybrid model. Go ahead and protect your mobile users. Do a test on it, and then start growing. You want to get ahead of the curve. When we do have 0 days going wild within enterprises, mobile devices, that's not the time to say, can we go ahead and protect our mobile users? Get ahead of the curve. You're going to want to perform an ROI between your on-premise solution and your cloud services. Just because cloud makes sense that there's lower CapEx cost, you still want to do due diligence, and I know that you will, just to make sure that you're getting what you need. And you're going to want to find a service that's going to provide savings and meet the requirements for your organization. It's really critical to get the right solution. You don't want to have to, you want to measure twice and cut once. Where are you at for your renewals? Renewals is important, as I mentioned to you earlier as well. Kind of plan your strategy around your renewals. When your renewals coming up, when you have new offices, as we mentioned earlier as well, new offices come up, let's go ahead and put them into the cloud. If they don't need to use the content delivery services that you might use at your larger offices, consider the cloud for them. But come up with a strategy. Be prepared. In the future, we talked about it earlier as well, we have to be able to protect our users no matter where they are, what Starbucks they're in, what other coffee shop they might be in, at home, at work, no matter what device they're on. And we want to be able to have consistent protection for our users based on what policies that you need. The extended enterprise is going to force us all into the cloud. Many of us will be a hybrid. Some of us will go to an exclusive cloud model. Find the solution that's going to work for you. Know what your use cases are, and find the solution that's going to meet them. But we have to be ready. And thank you for your time. Once again, Rick Holland. If you'd like to email me any questions, feel free to reach out at rholland@forrester.com, and there's my Twitter information as well, @Rick H. Holland. Thank you for your time.